when we talk about getting a medical diagnosis, there's usually this built-in expectation of precision. Like if you fall and break your arm, the X-ray shows a very clear, jagged white line.
Right. It's a binary thing.
Yeah. The doctor points at the screen and just says, there it is. It's broken. And we like that. We want our problems to be visible and, neatly categorized so we know exactly what we're dealing with.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly comforting to have a clear target.
But when you step into the world of trauma and extreme stress and neurodevelopment, that X-ray machine is basically useless.
Totally useless. You can't photograph a flashback.
Exactly. The diagnostic landscape we're looking at today is completely murky. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are going to look under the hood of extreme stress using Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's groundbreaking work, The Body Keeps the Score.
It's such a vital text.
It really is. And for you listening, we're zeroing in on the core concepts from Chapter 3. We want to see exactly what physical chaos unfolds in the brain during a crisis. We're stripping away the heavy medical jargon to give you a clear, actionable understanding of how these invisible wounds operate and what the biology of healing actually looks like.
Yeah, and it really is a profound shift in perspective. We are moving away from looking at the brain as this static machine that just breaks. And instead, we're looking at it as an incredibly adaptable survival system.
Which is such a more empowering way to look at it.
It is. The goal today is to explain why these physiological changes happen and why they matter to you in your everyday life.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start right where van der Kolk starts this exploration, which is with a brain scan study of traumatized individuals who are actively experiencing a flashback.
Right, the study with Marcia.
Yes, Marcia.
Yeah.
So they put her in an fMRI scanner, induced a flashback, and the researchers observed this phenomenon they labeled speechless horror. Which
sounds very poetic, but it is remarkably literal.
How so?
Well, when Marcia's flashback began, the researchers watched a very specific part of her brain. It's called Broca's area. And it completely shut down.
Like, it just went offline?
Entirely offline. On the scan, it literally appeared as a white spot, which means there was a massive decrease in blood flow and oxygen to that region. And Broca's area is the brain's physical speech center.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the machinery that allows us to translate our thoughts and feelings into spoken words.
So this is a literal physical paralysis of the vocal processing center. It's not just a psychological block or someone being stubborn and refusing to talk.
Exactly. The biological machinery required to speak literally loses its power supply.
That's wild.
It is, but that loss of speech is really only one piece of the puzzle. Because at the exact same time Broca's area goes dark, the brain radically shifts its overall resource allocation.
That happens.
The entire left hemisphere of the brain largely deactivates.
The whole left side.
Pretty much. And the left side is responsible for logic, sequencing, organizing time. It's the part that knows you are sitting in a safe room in the present day.
Right.
Meanwhile, the right hemisphere, which handles raw emotion, intuition, and vivid visual imagery, that side lights up like a fireworks display.
Okay, so if the left brain is the timestamp and the right brain is the raw sensory data, it's sort of like being trapped inside a terrifying movie where the projector's timestamp is completely broken.
That's a great way to put it.
Like you are fully experiencing the sights and the sounds and the sheer terror right now because your right brain is exploding with activity.
Yes.
But you've completely lost the rational narrator who can tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, it's just a movie. This happened in the past. You're safe now. That left brain narrator has basically left the building.
That is a perfect analogy. And think about the implications for everyday life. Like, for you listening, have you ever been so furiously angry or overwhelmingly stressed that you literally couldn't find the words to explain what was wrong?
Oh, definitely. You just stammer or you get that tight lump in your throat.
Exactly. And this biology proves that losing your words in a crisis isn't a sign of weakness. It's not a failure of intellect. It is the biological reality of how the human brain prioritizes immediate survival.
It's diverting power to the shields, basically.
Yes. In a perceived life or death situation, your brain diverts all power to the systems needed to fight or run away. It physically shuts down the luxury of speech.
Which makes total sense if you were running from a literal predator, but it's incredibly frustrating if you're just trying to navigate a heated argument with your boss or your spouse.
Oh, incredibly frustrating.
So if the logical left brain goes offline during a crisis and the speech center is dead, who is actually steering the ship?
The control defaults to the brain's internal alarm system. And van der Kolk uses 3 brilliant, really simple metaphors to map out this architecture. He calls them the smoke detector, the watchtower, and the cook.
Okay, I love this. Let's map those out, starting with the smoke detector.
So the smoke detector is the amygdala. It sits deep down in the older, emotional, unconscious part of the brain.
Right.
Its singular job is to constantly scan the environment for danger. When it spots a threat, it instantly releases a massive flood of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline to trigger your fight or flight response.
Instant panic mode.
Exactly. Neurologically, this is known as taking the low road.
The low road meaning it's like a shortcut.
Precisely. Sensory information, like a sudden loud noise, travels straight to the amygdala before it ever reaches your conscious awareness.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it operates in milliseconds, which gives you a massive survival advantage.
So it's that instinct that makes you jump backward away from like a coiled garden hose on the grass before your brain even registers that it's a hose and not a snake.
Exactly. You jump first and you realize why you jumped a second later.
Right.
And that realization comes from the watchtower.
Okay, so what's the watchtower?
The watchtower is the medial prefrontal cortex. It's situated right behind your forehead. This is the rational, conscious, evaluating part of the brain. It takes the slightly slower high road.
The high road.
Right. The watchtower looks down at the alarm sounding in the smoke detector and provides context. It evaluates the situation and says, okay, I smell smoke. Is the house actually burning down, or did we just burn the toast?
So if it's just toast, the watchtower sends an all-clear signal to hit the brakes on the panic.
Exactly. It calms the system down.
So the smoke detector reacts and the watchtower regulates. Where does the cook fit into this kitchen?
The cook is the thalamus. The thalamus acts like a master chef or a central relay station. It takes all the raw sensory ingredients pouring in from the outside world, the sights, sounds, smells, temperature, and it blends them together into a coherent, organized, autobiographical soup.
Autobiographical soup. I like that.
Yeah, it sequences the data to create the unified story of your life, telling you this is what is happening to me in this specific order right now.
Okay, so in a healthy everyday scenario, this trio works perfectly. The cook makes the soup, the smoke detector keeps an ear out for burning, and the watchtower makes sure nobody overreacts.
Exactly.
But what physically happens to this system when a person experiences extreme trauma?
The system completely fractures. Under extreme, inescapable threat, the smoke detector gets stuck in the on position.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it goes into permanent overdrive, constantly flooding the body with adrenaline. The watchtower, that rational voice of reason, is overwhelmed by the chemical flood and breaks down. It goes completely offline.
Which explains the left brain shutting down earlier.
Exactly. But the most profound change happens to the cook. The cook goes on strike.
Wait, why does the cook stop working? Why can't the brain just keep recording the event like a normal memory?
Because of the sheer volume of stress hormones, massive amounts of cortisol and adrenaline actually disrupt the neural networks responsible for sensory integration.
Oh, so it's a physical disruption.
Yes. The thalamus physically loses its ability to sequence the incoming data. Because the cook stops working, the traumatic memory is never blended into a coherent story with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
So how is the memory stored, if not as a story?
It's stored as shattered, isolated sensory fragments.
Like what?
Like a specific smell of cologne, the sound of a screeching tire, a flash of bright light, an unexplained physical pain in the chest.
Oh, just pieces.
Just pieces. And years later, when a person encounters a similar smell or sound, those isolated fragments are triggered. The smoke detector screams danger. And because the cook never filed the memory away in the past and the watchtower is offline,
the body reacts as if the life-threatening event is happening right this exact second.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let me push back for a second.
Yeah.
Isn't a highly sensitive smoke detector a good thing evolutionarily? Like, if it saves your life once, why is it considered a malfunction when it keeps going off later?
That is a great question. And you're right, it's a brilliant short-term survival mechanism. The problem arises when the threat is gone. The body's stress hormones don't return to baseline. The person lives in a state of constant physiological agitation, which wreaks long-term havoc on their physical health, their sleep, their ability to focus.
I mean, if living with an alarm constantly ringing destroys your immune system and keeps your heart rate constantly elevated, that takes a massive toll on the body.
A huge toll.
The system must eventually run out of energy to sustain that level of panic. What happens when the biological system physically cannot maintain the fight or the flight anymore?
That is a critical threshold. And the research illustrates it beautifully by comparing two patients from the text, Stan and Ute.
Right, the car crash.
Yes. They were both in the exact same horrifying multiple car pileup. Same vehicle, same moment of impact, same terrifying sensory input.
Have completely different reactions, right?
Completely different. When researchers looked at their brain scans years later while they recalled the memory of the crash, the contrast was staggering.
When Stan remembered the accident, his brain lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yes. His smoke detector was blaring. His heart raced. His blood pressure spiked. He started sweating profusely.
His brain went into active explosive fight or flight mode. He was biologically trying to escape a car crash that had happened years ago.
Exactly. His sympathetic nervous system was in total overdrive. But then you look at Ute. She was sitting right next to him during the crash. But when she was reminded of the event, her brain scan basically went dark.
Her heart rate didn't rise. Her mind went totally blank. She told the researchers she felt absolutely nothing at all.
Yes. The clinical term for this is depersonalization, or the freeze or collapse response.
Which is an almost total deactivation of the higher brain regions, paired with a massive drop in heart rate.
Right.
And this is where I have to pause because it seems completely counterintuitive. How does doing absolutely nothing help you survive a car crash? Like, if survival is about getting away from danger, how is total numbness an evolutionary advantage?
It's a brilliant question. To understand it, we have to look at the oldest part of our brain, the reptilian brain. When the brain calculates that fighting is impossible and running away is impossible, like being trapped in crushed metal, it deploys its ultimate emergency backup system. It pulls the biological emergency brake.
So it's essentially a systemic shutdown to conserve energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the possum playing dead. The brain floods the body with endogenous opioids, our internal painkillers. It drastically lowers the heart rate and numbs the body to blunt the incoming physical and emotional agony.
Oh, wow.
If you are going to be torn apart by a predator or crushed in a car, the brain's last line of defense is to ensure you don't feel it happen.
That is profound. It's not a failure to react. The numbness is the reaction.
Yes.
And think about what this means for you navigating your own life. This perfectly explains why when you are faced with a massive wave of stress, maybe a horrible confrontation at work, or getting devastating personal news, you might not panic or cry or yell. You might just feel incredibly heavy or completely numb or totally spaced out. It's not that you don't care about what's happening.
Oh.
It's your brain engaging its emergency pain dampening system. It's protecting you by unplugging you from reality.
It is an incredibly effective defense mechanism in the moment of trauma. But the tragedy is when individuals get stuck in that response long after the danger has passed.
Yeah.
Whether your nervous system gets locked in Stan's hyper-aroused fight state or locked in UT's numb, collapsed freeze state, the end result is identical. You are fundamentally disconnected from the present moment. You cannot feel safe in your own physical body.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. So what does this all mean? If the logical watchtower is offline, if the cook has abandoned the kitchen and the smoke detector is blaring, how on earth do you fix the alarm system?
It's the million-dollar question.
Because we've already established that the speech center shuts down, so we can't just talk our way out of it. You can't reason with a smoke detector.
You cannot. And this is where the research pivots from diagnosis to the actual mechanics of healing. If the trauma is stored in the body's physiology, the solution has to address the physiology.
Oh, so what are the solutions?
The text outlines two primary actionable pathways to rewire the system: top-down regulation and bottom-up regulation.
Let's start with top-down.
Yeah.
This means starting from the conscious mind and working down to the body's physical responses.
Yes. Top-down regulation is all about strengthening that watchtower. The goal is to increase your capacity to monitor your body's physical sensations without being hijacked by them.
Interoception.
Right, exactly. Interoception is the ability to look inside and accurately notice what you are feeling physically.
But how do we actually build that interoceptive muscle?
Through practices like mindfulness and yoga. It's the active, repeated practice of noticing, my chest is tight, my breathing is shallow, my jaw is clenched. The key is learning to observe these physical sensations as temporary, passing states, rather than absolute proof that you are in mortal danger. By doing this, you're actively training the watchtower to stay online and to calmly watch the smoke detector without hitting the panic button.
That makes a lot of sense. That covers the mind-to-body pathway. What about the other way around? What is bottom-up regulation?
Bottom-up regulation is about recalibrating the autonomic nervous system directly through the physical body. Remember, the rational thinking brain has very little direct neural wiring down into the deep emotional brain where the smoke detector lives.
You can't just think your way out of panic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You cannot simply send a thought down to calm the amygdala, but the body's respiratory and motor systems do have a direct, high-speed line to the emotional brain.
Really?
Yes, you can reach the alarm center through breath, movement, and touch.
Okay, so wait, let me clarify this. You're saying breathing isn't just a wellness cliche, it's an actual physiological hack to reach a part of the brain that logic literally cannot touch.
It is entirely a physiological hack.
Right.
And it relies heavily on the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve.
Yeah, it's this massive wandering nerve bundle that travels from your brainstem right down through your neck into your chest and all the way to your abdomen. It is the primary communication highway between your brain and your internal organs.
And breathing is the steering wheel for that highway.
Exactly. Breathing is one of the very few bodily functions that operates on automatic pilot. Like, you breathe while you sleep, but is also completely under your conscious control.
Right.
When you take a deep breath, and specifically when you focus on a long, slow exhale, you physically engage the diaphragm. That movement stimulates the vagus nerve.
And what happens when the vagus nerve is stimulated?
It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the body's internal brake. The vagus nerve essentially squirts a neurotransmitter directly onto your heart, which physically slows your heart rate down. As your heart rate drops, the vagus nerve sends mechanical electrical signal back up the highway straight into the brain's alarm center, delivering a very clear message. The heart is beating slowly. We are not running. We must be safe.
That is incredible. You are literally bypassing the broken watchtower and sending a physical stand-down order from your lungs straight to the smoke detector.
Yes. You are using your physiology to change your psychology. You must befriend the physical sensations in your body before your brain can ever effectively process the narrative of the past.
Because if you don't feel safe in your own skin, you'll never feel safe in your own memories.
Exactly right.
It completely flips the script on how we approach recovery.
So let's recap the journey we've taken through Chapter 3 today.
It's been a lot of ground to cover. It has. We've seen how extreme stress physically alters the brain's architecture. It shuts down the speech center, leaving us in wordless horror. It fractures the connection between our logical left brain and our emotional right brain. We've explored how the smoke detector goes into permanent overdrive, the watchtower collapses, and the cook fails to sequence our memories into a coherent story.
And we also saw how that biological chaos forces the body into extremes of survival, either the hyperized panic of fight or flight, like Stan, or the profound numbness of the freeze response, like Ute.
But most importantly, we learned that because the body keeps the score, the body is also the exact tool we must use to heal. We have to use both top-down mindfulness and bottom-up physical regulation, like breathing, to physically rewire the brain's alarm system.
Which leaves us with a provocative implication to consider.
Oh, definitely.
As you go about your day-to-day, pay attention to the next minor moment of stress you feel. Instead of letting your mind race to analyze why you're stressed, try noticing exactly where that stress lives in your physical body.
Like, is your chest tight? Is your jaw clenched?
Exactly. And what happens if you take one long, slow exhale? If our bodies keep the score of our pain, could they also serve as the blank slate for our healing?
That is something to chew on. The X-ray machine might not work for trauma, but the physical blueprint of the body provides all the clues we need. Thank you for bringing your curiosity to this deep dive. True learning is about connecting the dots to your own life. Keep questioning, keep observing, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.